Okay, so subtitle use in L2 viewing. So if you go please to the next slide. Or can I do that? No, I can't.
Just say next plus
next slide please. Yeah. Next slide, please. There we go. So Netflix, I'm sure that's, I mean, nobody needs an introduction to Netflix. So, and the question, of course, is not so much where is Netflix available, but where is it not available? And that's in just 4 little countries. Well, China, of course, being a big country, but most of the world has access to Netflix. And next slide, please. And to a point where some people complain that there is too much foreign language content on Netflix. So I certainly wouldn't complain about that, but it's certainly interesting, I think, for the very first time that we have a corporate organization that has that enables such international content. So according to this article here, in the US, 55%, only 55% of Netflix content is in English. And we have Netflix available in 62 different languages, according to this article. So next slide, please. This has been seen, there was an article in The Guardian already a few years ago, where it was seen not by language teachers, but by everyday people. So, well, maybe this is a very good way to learn a language. And interestingly here, it's these are not languages that we traditionally learn in our language classes. But it's languages that, if you look here at Tamil or Icelandic or Filipino, which at least in the English-speaking worlds, don't get much exposure to. So quite a different approach to language learning in general. So if you please go to the next slide. So we have heard a bit about informal learning from Phil this morning, and I'm just going to extend a bit on informal language viewing. So there's 2 studies here. Toffoli and Socket have observed already 10 years ago that the viewing of English series is very popular in France. So students who study English in France use this as an extra entertainment or to immerse themselves more in the language. And the study below by Cole and Van der Plank has shown that many autonomous self-instructed language learners actually achieve superior levels of proficiency than classroom-trained language learners. Next slide, please. Now, if you look online, there's lots of people talking about their own experiences with talking about how they taught themselves a language with Netflix. So people are doing experimenting with Netflix, with informal learning, of course, in general, but Netflix being a very popular choice because it has that pleasure element to it. And not only engaging in that, but also sharing their experiences with other people online. So next slide, please. So it's Netflix that, of course, as you will be well aware of, has the subtitling options. So you can watch a German TV series with in German with subtitles of many different languages, but also, of course, you can dub the subtitles, the sound as well. So many different options, but that can be extended by other features, which are also many of them available for free online. So there is the extension called Mate, which will give you translation options and also then features to save vocabulary. Then we have on the next slide, please. We have Lingvo, which turns your cell phone into a subtitling device, so you can read along the subtitles on your cell phone, and save features there as well. And next slide. We have the extension which I'm going to talk about today. It's called Language Learning with Netflix, which has a range of interesting features. And I think one of the most popular feature is that it has dual subtitles. So you have subtitles, you can see that here in that picture. You have the top subtitle is in English and in Spanish, because it's a Spanish series, and the one underneath is in English. Next slide, please. So a few people have been writing about that. Dixon, based in Japan, has done quite a few studies, some looking more at the formal environment, and the second one in the informal, so formally, so providing students with choices of subtitles in the L1, L2, or no subtitles. Turns out that students prefer captions, that means L2 subtitles. Then in another study, he just has provided students with, no, not yet. back. Thank you. So in another study, he has provided students with free access to Netflix and has observed over 3 months what they were doing, how they were using their subtitles. And what was interesting here, and it's something also I have discovered in my own study, which is below, that students use those subtitles quite dynamically. So depending on this, the situation, the level of understanding, their circumstances, if they're watching alone or with people, they kind of have a dynamic use of subtitles. And the last one here, I'm mentioning Turkman, who is the first one who has mentioned that extension LLN, which I showed you before in a study. So it was just a survey study which showed that only 20% or less than 20% were actually familiar with that extension. And now we have a whole range of little slides and just showing some features of that extension. So next slide, please. So we have on that slide, next slide, we have this dual subtitles. This is just a bit more clear. So you have the top subtitle in German and the one underneath in English. Next slide. Here we have, you can click on the word if you understand the word and you get a translation. And if you click a bit longer on that word, you get actually a bit more detail on the translation as well. Next slide, please. You can also save those words. So you have that little star behind the sentence. So if you save that whole sentence, it will appear in a different place and you can record it later on. Or you can also save individual words, and those words that you save will then reappear every time that word comes up again. It'll appear in a color in your script, so that it's getting reinforced. Other features, next slide, please. Imply a speed control, so you can adjust the speed. And what I quite like about that is that it's quite a slow increment. So on Netflix itself, now you can reduce the speed to 0.75, but that is very slow and it's distorted. But by putting the speed on 0.875, you actually have almost the same. You have hardly any distortion, but it's just much more easy to understand. Next slide, please. Then you have the option of hiding subtitles. So you can hide the English subtitles. Next slide, please. So you see that the English subtitle now is grayed out. And next slide. If you just move with your cursor on the subtitle, it comes back. So you can try it out how you would do without the second with the English support. But if you're stuck, you can just go over it and it's coming back to you. Yes, next slide. So this is, there's a few more functions to it, but I just wanted to show you a few that kind of made sense to most of the students that have used it in my study. So what did I want to do? I wanted to find out how my students in that case, it was a group of intermediate German and Spanish students, how they would approach this extension in an assignment where they had to watch Netflix over a period of 7 weeks. And it was actually very well timed because it was just in our lockdown period in New Zealand as well. So they had a very good entertainment value from their language assignment in that time. So they had to choose a series that they liked, and they have been given access to that extension and to report on a weekly basis what they have done, what they have watched, and how they watched. And then subsequently collected their data, and also had 2 questionnaires, one before and one after, and some focus group interviews. Next slide, please. Yeah, so this is just one more time, just the task which I just described. So we had the viewing activity where they had to watch those self-selected series, and the writing where they had to write in their blogs, which are shared on their activities. Next slide, please. Okay, so interesting is that most of all, well, everybody knew about Netflix, obviously, but not everybody had actually used it. Some even hadn't used it for English. So, but 70% had engaged in LG Netflix, how I call it, so second language Netflix, prior to the project. But most of them had used subtitles in English. And also acknowledged that they found it daunting to watch Netflix as it was just a bit too fast. And here I have a quote from a student who watched German in her last year of high school. and just said, well, she was just a stupid year 13 student and watched everything with English subtitles and didn't just concentrate. So she just watched it really for entertainment and didn't get much language value out of the exercise. Next slide, please. So, so when it came to exploring how to best use that extension, how to make best use for understanding and for learning, 59% said they explored the different features, but found it generally quite self-explanatory. Some said they would maybe have liked a tutorial. So coming back to that teacher training that Phil talked about this, that learner training that Phil talked about this morning, just a few said they would have liked it. Others felt it would have been a bit condescending having had that kind of tutorial session. But yeah, so they kind of felt they could do it on their own, and they also learned from each other by navigating, by reading each other's blogs.
Looks like the internet connection to the Antonie is not working properly at the moment. Well, let's give her a bit of a time. I hope she can come back. Otherwise, you can prepare any questions before she turns up again. Well, due to the short time we have, I think I will just show you the rest PowerPoint slides.
I'm back on another device now.
All right, okay. Antonie, you got only 2 minutes to go now.
Yeah, I know. That's fine. So is it this? Was this the next slide? Yeah, no, this is of course very confusing now. So what did they do? I can do that in 2 minutes. So they mainly use the dual subtitles. So you see in sense of frequency here. So next slide, please. Found it though, even if the dual subtitles were the most frequently used, they found it, some of them found it quite difficult processing those cognitively. So we have the quote here, my eyes didn't know where to look. I couldn't read two simultaneous texts a different language at the same time. So really difficult processing the two. Found it hard to keep up with the speed. Having said that, they didn't use the slowing down features and focusing on the L2, but on the L1 when tired. Next slide, please. Having said that, it increased their focus on the L2, so having more input, of course, and felt that, well, they got more comfortable using L2 subtitles, and also found it then much easier to transition from the L1 to L2 subtitles after the intervention. Next slide, please. Okay, so just my my conclusions here. So it wasn't as widespreadly used, especially for language learning, as I thought. So students were familiar with Netflix for language learning, but hadn't really done it. So certainly not for active L2 viewing. They watched it more for entertainment, but not for language learning. Next slide. So they felt that even if they said it was easy to explore, they really hadn't used most of the features the way I had expected them to use. Only very few used, for instance, the slowing down features. Having said that, through their peer interaction, they learned using it, and it became they saw it could be a feature, a tool for entertainment as well as for language learning. And the last slide. So really good to see that there was a good shift from L2 to L1 to subtitles. Students definitely benefit in the vocabulary learning side, and many of them continued after the project viewing Netflix or series and other providers as well, because they have that confidence to watch German or Spanish movies or series with L2 subtitles. And I saw that question coming up. Does it work on other devices as well? They do have the same extension also for YouTube, so you can use that extension for YouTube as well.